My objective was to find some software that would allow me to simulate Omaha high-low and also Omaha high-only, both at pot limit. My research was really starting out at Wilson Software, but unfortunately they only did limit rather than pot limit. So I came across AceSpadeReview.com, and I read up a few reviews which weren't all that highly praising, but decided to go ahead anyway and buy the software from AceSpade. So I actually went for the pot and no limit pot collection, which has both Hold'em as well as Omaha high and high low split. So that was $100. The website is a bit weird. I mean, it looks like it was knocked together in about 5 minutes. We can have a look at some reviews, which presumably ones they've written themselves, and we can also click on About Us, which gives us their address. And that's about it, really. When you buy the product, you are going through PayPal, so that is quite a good thing. So I didn't have any problem with that procedure. They didn't send me any confirmation email though, so I was a little disappointed by that. The only confirmation I had was from the PayPal payment itself, so it wasn't the best payment scheme I've seen. Before I paid, I did actually email sales@acespade.com and ask them a couple of questions. They did respond pretty quickly, I think within 24 hours, and gave me some information that I was after. So they certainly responded quickly in that regard. I didn't have any problem in that the product turned up in the post about a week later, being shipped from the US, and it's slightly disappointing that they actually have to ship physical media these days, but that's what they did, and so it turned up fine, and it installed on my Windows 7 laptop without any problems at all. So again, the website is a bit sort of clunky, which kind of matches their software, but at the end of the day it all worked as expected, really, so pretty satisfied overall, apart from a few little niggles. So this is the initial screen that you see when you launch a product, and this is the pot and no limit Texas Hold'em. The screen user interface really is a bit clunky and tacky, and really looks 1980s technology. In fairness, once you do get used to the interaction and the sort of gaudy screen, then it does actually seem to do the functionality that you want, just not in a very pretty or easy way. I've also got the Omaha and Omaha high-low pot and no limit products, and they all look exactly the same and work in exactly the same way from the user interface point of view. But I've picked Hold'em for a reason I'll show you shortly. So before we actually go into the play, I'll just show you some of the setup that needs to be done. So first of all, we'll have a look at the rules button. Now here we can see that we can change various things. So I want to play no limit, so I've checked that box, and I've got 2 blinds. One small problem is that I tend to play 25 cents, 50 cents, and it doesn't let you put in decimal point, so I've just used $25, $50 instead. You can set the house rake with various formulae, but I'm not all that fussed about that really myself. And then under preferences, we've got a few options here, so nothing too dramatic, so just really showing you things like, where you want to show folded hands and so on, may be quite useful. Hide buttons doesn't really do much, it just hides these buttons. Doesn't actually make the box any smaller, so you might as well show the buttons really. Again, one of the sort of UI bits which is really annoying, but there we are. So before we go into actually playing, what we can do is actually set up different players. So I'm going to pick a vacant seat, and we can set up the player either using one of the preset models, so we can say they're aggressive or tight or whatever, or we can manually select certain attributes we want to allocate to the player, and then change these sliders for their pre-flop actions, what they do on the flop, turn and river. So by adjusting the sliders for the percentages, you'll be changing the way the player actually plays. And then obviously we can give it a name and then apply the changes if we wish. I've already set up some players myself, so we'll take a look at that. What I've done is I played a six-handed cash game for a session for a while, and here we see the iPoker stats, and what I've got is the poker tracker statistics. So what I did was I looked at each player and picked out the stats for pre-flop, flop, turn and river and so on, and then just basically translated that to the player settings here. Now once I've set up my players, I can then save the players in a separate file, and then when I come back to want to play these same players again, I can just load that particular file, and I'll have those players available in the drop-down list here. You don't have to set up players if you don't want to. You can just use the predefined players. So there's sort of like these tight, solid, and so on players that are already there. But for the moment, I've already set up the players, and we can see I'm in seat 5 here, so that's me. And then what I wanted to do was to actually put in the amounts of money for each player. So we click the buy-in button, and then we can put in the amounts of money for each player. Again, we can't put in decimal points, so for me this was an actual cash session, but I've multiplied all the values by 100. So I've set my rules and preferences. I've set up my players to react in a way which I hope will reflect my actual cash session, and now I can go ahead and actually play a game. So there's two main ways of doing a game. One is to normal play, which is you just go ahead and play a game and see what happens. The one I tend to use, because I find it quite fun, is compete play, and this is where you have a player in a computer player in the background which is playing your hand behind the scenes, and then you can compare your results to the computer player who's playing exactly the same hands as you. So that's quite a bit of fun, so I tend to do that. Apart from that, normal play is exactly the same as compete play. So let's play a hand here. So you've got the option here to show advice on every move, which I've selected just because I want to see what the software would recommend in this case, or you can just have it alert you if you're going to make a wrong move. And here we've got the actions, so we can ask it to advise moves, but I've already got that up on the screen. If we're going to fold, we can zip to the end of the hand, so that's a quick way of getting to the end of this particular hand rather than sitting there and watching it go through. And then I can peek at other players' cards, which is quite interesting, but not really what I want to do right now. So here the advice is raise. I've got ace 10 under the gun, six-handed. Well, fair enough, let's raise it. Now it always seems to suggest a sort of fairly strange amount to raise. Here it's suggesting a min raise, and that will not necessarily always be a min raise. It seems to want you to raise a certain amount based on the strength of the hand, but in this case I'm going to raise to 3 times big blind. Okay, and as you can see, everybody folded round. Oops, no they didn't, sorry. So we got one player called, didn't see that, and it thinks I'm basically going to have the strongest hand and is recommending that I bet. So it's suggesting a bet of 175. Let's make it 250, just for the hell of it. Okay, now I've got a fold. So this is where we see how I compare against the computer player who's also playing my hand, and the computer player is called Roy. So as you can see, both myself and Roy both made 222 profit on this hand, and then there's a running total. So far, as we can see here, I'm beating Roy in terms of the cumulative total over 26 hands which I've been running prior to this recording. So here we can just continue, or I can play this same hand again myself, or I can just replay the hand just looking at what I did. And the interesting part is we can see what the computer player Roy did in this case. Another option we've got is the internet play. So this allows us to replay a particular hand that we've already played from the internet, or could be live play as well, but you really need your hand history in order to run this through. So here, for example, we first need to set up our own hand. So we'll give ourselves pocket kings as an example on the button, and of course here, rather than the computer playing the players, what we're doing is we're rerunning a hand history. So we need to tell the system, in this case, what the good one player did. So let's say he folds, lucky X72 can fold. Let's say I raise it up to 150, fairly standard, and I get a call from the blinds. Obviously now what we need to do is to put down the flop. So let's say it was a kind flop for us, and then we again replay what the players actually did. So they'll check to me, and then we still get our suggestions. So this can give us what we should have done, perhaps, according to this software, rather than what we perhaps may have done. So it's telling us to bet, so maybe we checked here thinking that we were too strong to bet, which may be the case, but there we are. Then let's put out a queen, and then we'll get check to. Let's say this time we do bet out, although it's telling us this time that we want to check. And then whatever the opponents did. So we'll bet out. Oh, sorry, the opponent will bet out, and then it's saying we should be raising here. So maybe we were scared of pocket nines or something, so we'll just call, and then obviously give our opponent a card or cards, and there we go. That's the internet play. So overall then, the user interface isn't great, a little bit clunky and horrible. The functionality itself seems to give you what you need in order to do the job of doing a simulation of a cash session game, and from what I've seen, the advice you get is fairly reasonable. Some of the bet sizing suggestions seem to be a little odd. I'm not completely convinced yet that the computer players are as tough as they are on the sort of higher cash games, but certainly from the playing that I've done with it so far, I would say that it's not a bad simulation, and you can't take everything literally, but I think as a training tool, just to get you into the feel of how a game would go, I do think it is a fairly accurate reflection of what would happen at the cash tables. So my conclusion really is that it's not fantastically expensive software, so if you need to learn a new game, then I think this software would certainly be one of the tools that you could use to give you some experience which will be meaningful on the cash tables without actually having to risk any cash. So overall, yeah, I think I would certainly recommend this software.